Hello and welcome back to the Real Estate Regroup Show. I am your host, LJ Walker. I'm here today to share with you some advice that I gave someone else who had came to me. They saw a mixed-use property and they wanted to know how I felt about investing in that. You see, it's not their first property. They do own a home, but this would be their first investment property. Now, this particular property is mixed use. Okay, so I said to her, okay, give me some information on it. So what she did is she gave me a picture only of the outside of the house. She mentioned to me that this was located in North Philly, and I know that North Philly is where she was raised. Okay. This particular property, this mixed use, 2 stores were on the bottom and then 3 apartments on top. One of the stores was a barbershop. And then as far as the apartments are concerned, only one apartment was rented, and that was to someone who is actually the heir to the property, and that person is also a drug addict. So here's how it goes. The 2 people, or the history, if you will, the 2 people who previously owned the property, both of them died. Okay. So now it's in the hands of the grandchildren. So that person is either a grandchild or is a son to the previous owners who have deceased and passed away. Needless to say, the ones who are actually running the property, if you will, they no longer want to have anything to do with it. So that's why it's up for sale. Now, hear this. They are asking $350,000 for the property. However, it was only appraised for $130,000. And then the tax assessed value is $113,000. Now, I don't know about you, but that's a big discrepancy between $113,000 and $350,000. Okay, then I only got a picture of the outside of the house. I don't know what the inside looks like. I can tell from the outside work does need to be done. I don't know in total how much work needs to be done. All right. So I said to her, I said, listen, even though you were born in this area and you say you know North Philly, there's still a lot of missing information. She was very excited, and I really didn't want to like pop her bubble. I was excited too. However, when you proceed in these type of transactions, you got to use your head more than you use your heart. So she began to tell me that the barbershop told her, I think they make like $7,000 either a week or a month. I don't remember exactly. And I said to her, well, did they show you any receipts? Did you see a profit and loss statement? And she was like, no, because it's mom and pop. And I said, okay, even though it's mom and pop, they really should show you something on paper to prove whatever it is that they're saying. So they should have, let's say, show you some checks that were deposited in their account for the rent roll, if they never, physically wrote one out. Plus, they can always go to an accountant and get it done. Correct? The barbershop also, even though they might not know how to put it together, but they can always hire an accountant that can put it together and show her. Plus, there's something called a lease. Did the people have a lease with the barbershop? Was there a lease also with the heir that lives in one of the apartments? Was any of that shown? Apparently, no. So I said, you have to go back and you have to get that information, because that's very important. You can't just go by what people tell you. You got to go by what people show you, because a lot of people, unfortunately, they fluff the numbers. As a matter of fact, they fluff a whole lot of things besides numbers, but that's another story altogether. So moving right along. Okay, so then my thing is, it's always good to run title. So I have a quick and dirty software. And when I ran title, I found that there was one lien for over $3,000. So I said to her, you're going to need to verify with the city if that lien still exists, if they're going up to auction, or if it already went up to auction. Because you don't want to pay, because she was going to go ahead and pay $350, and I was like, no, you need to negotiate that. But it doesn't make sense you pay all of that money, $350,000, when there's a $3,000 lien. Because guess what? The person with the $3,000 tax lien, whoever bought that lien, is the rightful owner of that property. And what they'll do is, if the redemption period has ended, they'll foreclose on the property and take it for the $3,000, and you'll be out of the $350. Okay? Even though, listen, I don't want her to pay $350. I don't want you to pay $350. I don't want nobody to pay $350,000 for this particular property. Okay? Again, the discrepancy is just too wide, and there's just too much information that's missing. The next thing I asked her was, what is the age of the boiler? Now, some boilers, there's like a tag on it, and it'll let you know when it was put in place. She never looked at the tag of the boiler. Okay. Yes, you can get an engineer or an inspector or even a contractor to do that. But before you pay somebody to do it, one of the deal breakers is, if you will, is really for you to check that yourself before you go spending money on those type of people, right? Then the age of the house, I forgot how old the house was, but I know that a lot of times if a house is like 35 years old, you might have to replace the electrical and the plumbing. She never got that information. That's very important. Because why? You can deduct that from whatever the asking price is. And then the age of the roof, she never asked them how old the roof was. She never even looked up at the ceiling to see if there was any discoloration. Because if there's discoloration in the roof, that normally means that there are what? Leaks. And all of that can be deducted if you want to go with it. All of that can be deducted from the price and value of the home. You understand me? So, yeah, that I told her if she wanted to move forward, that has to get done. Because again, you don't want to pay the asking price, and then you find out you got to pay $20,000 here, $6,000 over here, and I can already see that the windows need to be done. And windows, large windows, like I have windows from floor to ceiling, actually 2 floors, and I was quoted $500 per window to replace. These windows were not that large, so they probably will cost $300 to replace. So again, that can be subtracted from the asking price. She didn't know that, so I let her know. Next thing I asked her was that particular area, how close was it to a McDonald's? And the reason why I asked that is because I know that McDonald's will put somebody on a corner and make sure 100,000 people pass by that corner before they stick a McDonald's up there. So I was trying to figure out like how much foot traffic actually goes past that particular building. Because if a lot of foot traffic doesn't go there, then you might have a hard time finding commercial tenants for your commercial space. Because remember, one space is completely empty. Okay, and even if you do find a commercial tenant, will they make enough money to pay the rent that you're going to charge? That's another reason why you got to look into McDonald's in particular, but really any fast food. How close are they to the place? And she said there really wasn't that many fast food places. It really was a lot of mom and pop stores. That's what was nearby. And I also asked her about competition, like how many other barbershops are in the area. And when you look at the foot traffic coming into, or how many people were sitting in the chairs when you visited, and then did you look at the other barbershops and see how many people were sitting in their chairs when you walked past? That's another indication of, will this place be able to sustain itself? Can it survive amongst the different competition that's in the area? I wanted to know, was it packed? The other thing, again, is that the business, sometimes you want to look at the business financials, but sometimes you also want to look at the personal financials of the person who actually owns the business. And then another thing you might want to do, I know everybody doesn't do it, is you want to see if it's a legitimate business. Just because it says barbershop, beauty shop, candy shop, sometimes those people don't even have an LLC. They just decided that they're gonna, set up shop wherever without actually registering it with the Secretary of State. Being that they're pulling in, let's say, $7,000 a month, the other question is, why is it that there are 4 windows that are busted in the shop? That's a question mark for me, a red flag for some other people. Some people would still move forward, but a lot of negotiation needs to be going on here, a lot. And then you also need to know, when you're buying mixed use is not the same as 100% residential. Okay. When it's 100% residential, as the landlord, you take care of the water. When it's mixed use, that's not always the case. So again, you need to look at that lease, and the lease should say, okay, who's paying for the water? Is it you or is it the business? And if there is no lease, because believe it or not, there are people who do things without leases, you can always go down to the water department and see who was the last person that paid the bill. Was it the people who owned the building, or was it the people that owned the beauty shop? And the barbershop, and let's be real, let's be honest. The barbershop is going to use up a lot more water than the 3 apartments combined upstairs. Typically, that's the case. So you gotta figure that out. You also want to know, okay, who's handling electricity? And a lot of times in the commercial spaces, the commercial part of the building handles the electricity. And then either you, the landlord, will handle it, or you will have your, the other tenants pay their own electric bill. And then also, what about gas? Some places the landlord handles the gas for the whole building. Sometimes they only handle the gas for part of the building. That's why you need to check the leases, or check directly with the electrical company, check directly with the gas company to see who paid it last. Now, of course, you can always change the lease once you buy the property, but you still want to get a sense of what's going on. And let's be honest here. Too many changes can drive a good tenant away. That's another reason why you need to know what's going on. Okay. The next thing, taxes. Now, I went to RebCon, the Real Estate Wealth Building Conference, and I did meet a guy there who owned a mixed use building in Philly where she was, and he says that he has the commercial tenants pay the tax. He don't even pay taxes on that building. But he says each transaction is not the same. Just because he doesn't do it on that building, he knows somebody else who actually is paying the taxes, and the taxes on a mixed use property is going to be higher than a regular residential use property. So this is why you gotta make sure everything is free and clear. Next, you want to look, of course, at insurance. Next, you want to also consider maintenance. How much does it cost to maintain that building? If they don't do, meaning the owners, if they did not properly, if they don't have a profit and loss statement, if they don't have any business financial statements to give you, and they don't give you any proof of any repairs or bills that they paid for, not only for this year, but for 3 years coming forward, then guess what? You can ask the people next door. Now, they might not give you 3 years, but they may give you you'll have a rough estimate if you ask the people next door how much they paid and what their repair costs were. At least get some type of ballpark figure so that you know how much to deduct from that asking price. And know this, whatever number you come up with, they may counter it and say something else. Like, for example, after you deduct all of the maintenance, all of the repairs and everything else, it may come down to, let's say, $180,000. And so you go to them and say, no, I'm not paying you $350. I'm paying you $180. And this is why I'm paying you $180. They might counteract and say something like, well, the property has sentimental value, this, that, and the third. You got to be prepared for that. And you got to be prepared to counteract whatever it is they say, or to get up from the table and walk away. You don't want to move forward in that particular situation. Okay? Now, so that's why you need to have all of this information before you move forward. All right? Now, getting back to the money. She was saying that she did not want to go to a bank. She wanted to go to a private lender. Here's the situation here. A private lender is normally going to ask you for a higher interest rate and a shorter term. Like a bank will give you 30 years and they might give you whatever the current interest rate is, which might be 4 or 5%. Some private lenders, like myself, we charge 10%, and we're not giving you 30 years. You got 4 months to 1 year to fix it, and then you might be able to refinance your way out of the deal, or refinance your way and make regular payments that way. Here's my thing. If it's going to be under your name, just go to the bank. If it's going to be under your business name, then yeah, I can see you going to a private lender and doing it that way. But the other issue is this, and I did speak to a lender, at the Real Estate Wealth Building Conference. They said they liked the fact that there were more apartments than stores because they consider mixed use risky. And I have heard it before. I was told never buy mixed use property, but they never told me why. But it's mainly because of the banks. The other thing is, she was saying that the tenant that was on drugs, who she really wasn't clear on how much exactly he pays a month and if he even pays on time, she was going to just leave him there. The banks don't really like that. The banks will, she would have had to keep that on the low. But here's the thing, me personally, I don't care for it either. I really don't. One of the main reasons is because she lives in a state. Philadelphia is a tenant-friendly state. It's not a landlord-friendly state. And since COVID, a lot of the courts are backed up. So if she keeps him there, meaning if she closes on the property and decides to leave him in the property, if she later decides, hey, I want to get rid of him, she's going to have a very hard time doing that. That's why when you buy a property, a lot of times, especially in tenant-friendly states, it's better to buy it free and clear of tenants instead of letting the tenants actually stay there. You know, I believe someone in Philly once told me, it's really not as bad as other places, but it can take maybe like 9 months to a year to get rid of someone. So that's why I would not encourage anybody to keep a tenant in a property, especially a tenant that is hooked on drugs. And, you know, not only, even if you were to use your own money and not go to a private lender and not go to a bank, it's better to get rid of them and not leave them there. Okay, so that's basically my suggestions. Oh, and then the other thing is, when you're updating the leases, don't do that by yourself. It's best to get an attorney that is familiar with commercial leases and have either a new one created or have it updated. There are some real estate brokers who are familiar with commercial leases and can help you as far as getting a boiler template for one. However, in this particular situation, she did not find this property through a broker. She found this property by driving around and seeing a sign that says this property is for sale. That's how she got this particular property. And that's what basically is going on. From my understanding, she said she wanted me to help her out, you know, when she gets the information. But later on, I heard from someone else that they decided not to move ahead with this because the way things seem, they said that the barbershop looked like it was bootleg or seemed bootleg. So I said, all right, fine. You know, no skin off my back. My money is not involved in this, right? It's up to them. I really, you know, I didn't want to discourage them. It may sound like I am, but I'm not discouraging. I'm just trying to say, when you're moving in this type of way, you got to do all your research. You got to make sure that you have all your eggs or all your ducks in a row so that you can safeguard yourself and so that you know that you're going to be moving in a profitable way. Anyway, guys, so now that's officially it. Please like, comment, share, subscribe. And if you have any questions, please feel free. Until next time, have a good night.